Hey guys. This is part 5 of What If Naruto Was the Shadow Monarch. Hit like and subscribe if you like this one. Let's start. Chapter 17, Vessels of Light and Shadow. The council chamber fell into stunned silence as Naruto completed his report. The confrontation with Xerxes had left no room for skepticism about the cosmic forces now targeting their world. Jiraiya's crystallized arm, still resistant to all medical treatment, provided tangible evidence of powers beyond conventional shinobi understanding. Let me ensure I understand correctly, Shikakunara said, breaking the silence with his characteristic analytical precision. These rulers require human vessels with specific spiritual resonance to manifest in our world. There are potentially 7 more such vessels besides yourself, all presumably unaware of their significance. And beyond these rulers, we face potential threats from 4 monarchs. That's correct, Naruto confirmed, shadow energy visibly flowing beneath his skin as he spoke. Though the monarchs generally require significantly more preparation to cross between realms, they won't manifest as suddenly as Xerxes attempted, and you believe we should prioritize locating these potential vessels before the rulers can claim them, Tsunade summarized. While simultaneously preparing for possible monarch incursions. Yes, Naruto replied. If these individuals accept ruler essence willingly, they become impossible to save, as we saw with Xerxes' vessels. Identifying them before contact is our best strategy. Do we have any way to identify these people? Inoichi Yamanaka asked, his intelligence background immediately focusing on practical methodology. Any common characteristics or patterns? Naruto closed his eyes briefly, consulting with Ashborn. They tend to be individuals of significant potential or accomplishment, often those who stand at critical positions of influence or power. Throughout history, they've typically been leaders, warriors, or those with unusual spiritual sensitivity. That describes half the shinobi in the 5 great nations, Hamura observed dryly. There's more, Naruto continued. Ashborn says they often share certain spiritual markers, unusual chakra patterns that don't fit conventional elemental affinities, resilience against spiritual intrusion, and frequently, a sense of something greater calling to them throughout their lives. Hayashi Hyuga leaned forward with sudden interest. Could Byakugan detect these spiritual markers? Possibly, Naruto acknowledged. Though not easily. The resonance exists at a level beyond conventional chakra pathways. But with proper guidance, yes, the Byakugan might identify potential vessels. This practical approach to identification shifted the council's focus from philosophical debates about cosmic entities to concrete action plans. Exactly what Naruto had hoped for. Despite his partial ascension and the emotional detachment it had brought, he still understood political psychology well enough to recognize that giving the council actionable tasks would minimize resistance to his unprecedented status. I propose establishing a specialized task force, Tsunade stated firmly, dedicated to identifying these potential vessels and establishing protective protocols. Given the unique nature of this threat, I suggest Naruto lead this initiative, with representatives from intelligence, censor, and medical divisions supporting the proposal. Placing a genin in leadership over senior specialists would have been unthinkable days ago. Now, with the shadow energy visibly flowing through his transformed system and the memory of his victory over Xerxes fresh in everyone's minds, only Koharu offered token resistance. This continues the concerning pattern of elevating Uzumaki beyond established command structures, she observed. Are we certain his judgment remains sufficiently aligned with Konoha's interests after this partial ascension? My judgment is precisely why I'm valuable in this scenario, Naruto responded calmly. I can perceive aspects of the threat invisible to conventional awareness while maintaining human understanding of what's at stake. Neither pure human nor pure cosmic entity could address this situation effectively. The balanced self-assessment surprised several council members who had expected either defensiveness or arrogance. Instead, Naruto spoke with a clarity that acknowledged both his unique capabilities and his continued commitment to human welfare. I support the Hokage's proposal, Shikaku stated, effectively ending serious opposition. Practical containment of cosmic entities requires specialized knowledge that Naruto uniquely possesses. Traditional command structures must adapt to unprecedented threats. The council vote that followed approved the specialized task force almost unanimously, with only Koharu and Hamura abstaining rather than directly opposing. As the chamber emptied, a sudden tremor shook the building. Dust fell from the ceiling, and the chakra-infused lamps flickered. What was that? Tsunade demanded, already moving toward the windows. Before anyone could respond, a second, more violent tremor rocked the tower. In the distance, an explosion of blinding light erupted near the village gates, followed by screams and the distinctive sound of combat. "We're under attack," Jiraiya announced, wincing as he tried to move his crystallized arm. "And that light signature feels awfully familiar." Naruto's senses immediately expanded beyond human limitations, shadow networks conveying information faster than conventional perception. "Not Xerxes," he stated with certainty. "But similar energy signature, another ruler attempt at manifestation. So soon?" Tsunade demanded, already issuing rapid orders to the ANBU guards. "Secure the civilians! Full defensive protocols, they're escalating their timeline," Naruto explained as they raced toward the disturbance. Xerxes' failure likely triggered contingency plans. Within minutes, they reached the source of the chaos. The eastern gate of Konoha had been transformed, stone and wood crystallized into translucent material that pulsed with internal light. Between the altered gate pillars stood a single figure that immediately triggered Naruto's enhanced senses. Unlike Xerxes' fully luminous manifestation, this entity retained more human appearance. A tall man with striking silver hair and an ornate eye patch, wearing ceremonial robes that seemed to shift between solid fabric and pure light. 3 dead Konoha guards lay at his feet, their bodies partially crystallized as Jiraiya's arm had been. "Successor of Ashborn," the man called out, his voice carrying the same painful harmonics as Xerxes' but modulated to sound almost musical. "I am Ao, vessel of Arcus, keeper of boundaries. I come with warning, not conquest." Tsunade signaled the surrounding shinobi to hold position but remain ready. "Identify yourself properly," she demanded. "Ao was a Kiri Sensunin who went missing in action." The figure smiled, an expression both dignified and disturbing on his transformed face. "This vessel possessed the necessary sensory abilities to locate your unique energy signature, successor. His connection to the Byakugan made him particularly suitable for crossing realm boundaries." Naruto processed this information quickly. The entity had chosen Ao deliberately for his sensory capabilities, suggesting rulers could select specific vessels based on skills relevant to their objectives. This added yet another concerning dimension to the threat they faced. "You killed my guards to deliver a warning?" Tsunade challenged, chakra visibly gathering around her fists. "Unfortunate but necessary resistance," Ao/Arcus replied without remorse. "This manifestation is temporary. The vessel cannot sustain full presence in your realm without additional preparation. I needed to ensure the successor would hear my message before dissipation occurs. Then speak your message," Naruto stated, stepping forward as shadow energy gathered around him in protective swirls. "But know that any further violence will be met with immediate response." The entity inclined its head slightly, acknowledging the threat. "The monarchs rise faster than anticipated. Quaratia, the plague monarch, has already established biological bridgeheads in your realm, infection vectors preparing the way for her full manifestation. Rakan, the beast monarch, gathers his hunters at the boundary. And you share this information why?" Naruto asked carefully, sensing Ashborn's intense interest through their bond. "Because the awakening monarchs threaten all," Ao/Arcus stated simply. "Rulers, Shadow Monarch, and this realm alike. Xerxes' approach, immediate elimination of Ashborn's successor, represents only one faction among the fragments of brilliant light. Others recognize that ancient enmities must be set aside in the face of greater threats. You're proposing an alliance," Naruto interpreted, maintaining a defensive stance even as he engaged diplomatically. "Practical cooperation against mutual destruction," the entity confirmed. "The monarchs care nothing for the disputes between Ashborn and his former brethren. To them, all who inhabit this realm are merely sustenance for their inevitable dominion." Before Naruto could respond, a massive surge of chakra from beside him signaled Tsunade's loss of patience. Her fist slammed into the ground, creating a fissure that raced toward the luminous figure. "Enough philosophical posturing," she declared. "You've killed Konoha shinobi on Konoha soil. That demands response before any talk of alliance." The entity sidestepped the attack with inhuman grace, light trailing from its movements like afterimages. "Impulsive but understandable," it commented. "Human perspective remains impressively immediate despite its limitations." Without warning, Naruto's shadow soldiers materialized from the surrounding darkness, executing a perfectly coordinated attack pattern that drove the luminous figure back toward the crystallized gate. Unlike conventional shinobi, they could engage the light-based entity without risk of crystallization. "Impressive command of shadow forces," Ao/Arcus acknowledged, deflecting their attacks with pulses of light that temporarily disrupted their cohesion. Your integration with Ashborn's essence progresses faster than anticipated. Enough talk, Naruto stated coldly, shadow energy coalescing around his hands into blade-like extensions. You killed 3 people to deliver a message you could have communicated without violence. That suggests your alliance offers little difference from Zerixus's approach. The entity's expression shifted to something like regret. The limitations of forced manifestation through partially compatible vessels. Precision becomes difficult. A fully willing vessel would allow more controlled interaction. Naruto attacked directly, shadow blades slicing through the air with precision that surprised even the cosmic entity. One blade connected, cutting across the luminous figure's shoulder and causing its form to flicker momentarily, light and substance temporarily separating before reintegrating. You possess more offensive capability than expected, Aos/Arcus observed, genuine surprise evident despite the harmonized voice. Shadow Monarch successors require nearly complete ascension before achieving direct damage against a fragment. Instead of counterattacking, the entity retreated several steps, hands raised in a gesture suggesting parley rather than continued combat. Violence serves neither our purposes, it stated. My manifestation time grows short. I cannot maintain presence in this vessel much longer regardless of our conflict's outcome. Then make your final point quickly, Naruto demanded, maintaining offensive stance but pausing his attack. The Plague Monarch's vectors have already infiltrated your population, Aos/Arcus revealed, voice growing fainter as the manifestation began destabilizing. Subtle biological changes preparing compatible hosts for her arrival. Look to unexplained illnesses, particularly those affecting chakra pathways. That is where Queratia's influence first appears. The practical intelligence immediately caught Tsunade's attention, her medical expertise recognizing the strategic value of such specific warning regardless of its source. And where would we find your faction if we considered this alleged alliance? Jiraiya demanded, stepping forward despite his injured arm. The ancient shrine at the Valley of Whispers, the entity replied, its form growing increasingly transparent. 3 days' journey northeast. Come with the successor and representatives of your realm's defenders. Bring the Sand Wielder as well. His tailed beast contains knowledge crucial to understanding the monarch's weaknesses. With those final words, the luminous figure collapsed inward, light compressing to a single point before dissipating entirely. Where Ao's reanimated form had stood moments before, only crystallized earth remained, sparkling with residual energy that slowly faded. Naruto approached the spot cautiously, shadow senses extended to detect any lingering presence. It's gone, he confirmed after a moment. The manifestation was indeed temporary, likely an emergency communication method rather than attempted full incursion. 3 dead guards for an emergency communication, Tsunade stated bitterly, kneeling beside one of the fallen shinobi. Their families won't find much comfort in cosmic politics. No, Naruto agreed quietly, genuine remorse penetrating his emotional detachment. They won't. As medical teams arrived to tend to the fallen and secure teams established perimeters around the crystallized gate, Naruto found himself torn between strategic calculation and moral clarity. The information about monarch activities, particularly the Plague Monarch's biological infiltration, represented critical intelligence that could save countless lives. Yet it came at the cost of 3 Konoha shinobi and through an entity that viewed such deaths as regrettable but acceptable collateral damage. What does Ashborn say about this proposed alliance? Temari asked quietly, appearing beside him as cleanup operations continued. He's uncertain, Naruto admitted. Nothing in his millennia of experience prepared him for rulers proposing cooperation rather than conquest. It represents either genuine evolution in cosmic perspective or elaborate deception, with little historical precedent to distinguish between them. But the warning about the Plague Monarch? Temari pressed. Aligns with subtle patterns he's detected himself, Naruto confirmed. Biological anomalies that conventional medical science might attribute to natural mutation but actually represent deliberate infection vectors from beyond our realm. Tsunade joined them, her expression grave after examining the crystallized remains of her fallen shinobi. I want your assessment, she stated directly to Naruto. Not Ashborn's cosmic perspective or your human instincts, but your integrated judgment as you now exist. Is this alliance proposal worth pursuing despite the risks? The directness of the question demanded equally direct response. Naruto considered carefully, allowing both human moral calculation and cosmic strategic awareness to inform his answer. Yes, he concluded finally. Not because I trust Arcus or any ruler faction, but because the monarch threat represents greater immediate danger to this realm than ruler politics. If Queratia has indeed established biological bridgeheads in our population, We need all possible intelligence about countering her influence before full manifestation occurs. The deaths here? Tsunade challenged, clearly testing his moral framework. Unacceptable regardless of strategic considerations. Naruto replied without hesitation. Any alliance would require establishing clear boundaries regarding human life, non-negotiable conditions that must be respected before cooperation could proceed. His answer seemed to satisfy something Tsunade had been measuring. Then we prepare a delegation to this Valley of Whispers, she decided. You, myself, Jiraiya if his arm can be stabilized, and a select team of Jonin with specific sensor capabilities. We'll request Gaara's presence through appropriate diplomatic channels, and we implement immediate medical screening protocols, Naruto added. If the Plague Monarch has indeed established infection vectors, identifying and isolating them takes priority over everything except immediate village security. Before further plans could be discussed, a messenger hawk arrived from the village boundary, delivering an urgent communication to Tsunade. Her expression darkened as she read the contents. It appears we have confirmation of Arcus's warning sooner than expected, she announced grimly. 3 cases of an unidentified illness affecting chakra pathways have been reported in the northern district. Symptoms include chakra crystallization similar to Jiraiya's injury but developing internally rather than from external contact. The implications were immediately clear. The Plague Monarch's influence had already reached Konoha, exactly as the ruler vessel had warned. Whatever the complex cosmic politics between rulers and monarchs, the threat to human populations was immediate and tangible. I need to see these patients, Naruto stated, already moving toward the hospital. The Shadow Network might detect patterns invisible to conventional medical examination. As they rushed toward the medical center, Temari kept pace beside him, her analytical mind already processing strategic implications. If this Plague Monarch can infect populations before physically manifesting, she observed, traditional defensive protocols become useless. We can't fortify against an enemy already inside our borders, exactly why the monarchs represent greater immediate threat than ruler politics. Naruto confirmed. Cosmic entities fighting over philosophical differences can be temporarily contained. Biological warfare against entire populations cannot. At the hospital, they found Sakura already attending the affected patients, her medical training under Tsunade proving valuable in this unprecedented situation. She looked up as they entered, professional composure masking obvious concern. 3 cases confirmed, 6 more suspected, she reported efficiently. All presenting with identical symptoms, chakra pathways developing crystalline structures that progressively block energy flow. Conventional medical techniques have proven ineffective in dissolving or removing the crystallization. May I? Naruto asked, gesturing toward the nearest patient. Sakura hesitated only briefly before nodding. Despite his transformed appearance and the visible shadow energy flowing beneath his skin, her trust in her former teammate remained intact. Naruto approached the patient, a middle-aged civilian woman who worked in the village marketplace, and extended his awareness through the shadow networks that existed even within living bodies. What he detected confirmed their worst fears. Deliberate infection, he stated grimly. Not random mutation or exposure. The crystallization follows specific patterns designed to transform chakra systems into something compatible with entities from beyond our realm, essentially creating internal gateways for the Plague Monarch's influence. Can you counter it? Tsunade demanded, immediately focusing on practical response. Naruto consulted briefly with Ashborn before responding. Possibly. Shadow energy might disrupt the crystallization process if applied directly to affected chakra pathways. But it would require precise application at the cellular level, essentially rewiring individual chakra nodes to reject the crystalline structure. That level of precision would normally be impossible, Tsunade observed, her medical expertise immediately identifying the technical challenges. With conventional techniques, yes, Naruto agreed. But shadow energy can operate beyond conventional physical limitations, directly influencing the boundary between material and spiritual essence where chakra pathways exist. You're proposing to treat these patients yourself. Sakura interpreted correctly. It's the only immediate option, Naruto confirmed. Though success isn't guaranteed, and the process will be painful for the patients. Shadow energy disrupting crystallized chakra pathways creates significant discomfort during the conversion process. Tsunade considered only briefly before nodding decisively. Begin with one patient, the most advanced case. We'll monitor results before proceeding with others. As medical staff prepared the selected patient, a young Chunin whose exposure had apparently occurred during boundary patrol, Naruto turned to Temari with uncharacteristic hesitation. What I'm about to do pushes further toward full integration with Ashborn's essence, he explained quietly. Manipulating shadow energy at cellular level requires deeper connection to cosmic perspective than previous techniques. It will accelerate the changes. Understanding immediately what he was truly communicating, Temari met his gaze directly. Then remember why you're doing it, she advised. Hold the human purpose at the center of the cosmic technique. The motivation may help anchor your humanity even as the ability pushes beyond it. The insight struck deeply, offering practical approach to what had been abstract concern. By consciously maintaining focus on the human lives being saved rather than merely the technique's mechanical execution, perhaps he could utilize cosmic power without surrendering human perspective. When preparations were complete, Naruto stood beside the affected Chunin, shadow energy gathering around his hands in patterns more complex than any he had previously manifested. The darkness seemed almost liquid, flowing in mathematical sequences that reflected cosmic principles beyond conventional understanding. This will hurt, he warned the patient directly. But the alternative is progressive crystallization until chakra flow ceases entirely. The young shinobi nodded grimly, professional calm masking obvious fear at both his condition and the unusual treatment proposed. Proceed, Uzumaki-san. Naruto placed his shadow-wrapped hands directly on the Chunin's chest, closing his eyes to focus beyond physical perception. Through the shadow networks, he could visualize the crystalline structures forming throughout the chakra pathways. Beautiful but utterly alien formations that redirected energy flow according to patterns designed to eventually transform the entire system. Shadow technique, cellular reformation, he intoned, allowing Ashborn's knowledge to flow through him more completely than ever before. The shadow energy penetrated beyond skin and tissue, directly accessing the chakra network at its fundamental level where physical and spiritual essence merged. There, it encountered the crystalline structures, meeting light-based intrusion with darkness-based counteraction in a microscopic battle for cellular dominance. The patient's body convulsed as the process began, pain evident despite the medication administered beforehand. Crystalline structures that had taken root within chakra nodes fought against shadow disruption, light and darkness engaging in primal conflict within human flesh. Sweat beaded on Naruto's forehead as he maintained precise control, directing shadow energy to dismantle crystallization without damaging the underlying chakra structures. The complexity exceeded anything he had previously attempted, requiring simultaneous attention to thousands of individual conversion points throughout the patient's system. Through it all, he fought to maintain Temari's suggested focus, not merely executing cosmic technique but remembering its human purpose. Each crystalline structure dissolved represented a human life preserved, each shadow manipulation performed in service to values beyond cosmic power dynamics. After what seemed like hours but was likely only minutes, the conversion process completed. The patient collapsed back onto the medical bed, exhausted but stable. Diagnostic equipment showed chakra pathways clearing of crystalline obstruction, returning gradually to normal configuration. It worked, Sakura confirmed after running specialized diagnostic techniques. The crystallization is receding. Chakra flow returning to normal parameters. Naruto stepped back, shadow energy still rippling beneath his skin but now pulsing with greater intensity than before, evidence of the deeper integration required to perform healing at this level. He could feel the changes immediately. Perception expanded beyond previous limitations, awareness of cosmic patterns strengthened, emotional detachment deepened further. Yet paradoxically, the conscious focus on human purpose had preserved something essential despite these changes. He still recognized the value of the life saved beyond strategic calculation, still felt genuine relief at the patient's recovery rather than merely satisfaction at technical success. You can treat the others? Tsunade asked, professionally assessing both the patient's improvement and Naruto's condition after the procedure. Yes, he confirmed. Though each treatment further integrates Ashborn's essence with mine. By the final patient I'll be significantly changed from my current state. Tsunade studied him carefully, medical expertise and leadership responsibility balancing in her assessment. You understand what you're sacrificing, she observed. It wasn't a question. I do, Naruto confirmed simply. But the alternative is unacceptable. As preparations began for treating the next patient, Jiraiya approached, his crystallized arm now carefully wrapped in specialized sealing tags that seemed to be containing further spread of the condition. The Valley of Whispers was once considered sacred ground, he informed them quietly. Ancient texts in the Fire Temple reference it as a place where voices from beyond the veil speak to those with ears to hear. I always assumed it was religious metaphor, but given recent events, It's likely another nexus point where boundaries between realms naturally thin, Naruto confirmed, drawing on Ashborn's knowledge. An appropriate meeting place for entities that exist partially beyond conventional reality. You believe this alliance proposal is genuine? Jiraiya asked, skepticism evident despite his recognition of the strategic necessity. I believe the monarch threat is genuine, Naruto clarified. Whether all ruler factions sincerely seek alliance or merely temporary advantage remains uncertain. But the intelligence value alone justifies cautious engagement. As they spoke, Naruto became aware of subtle changes in his perception. Shadow networks throughout the hospital suddenly visible with unprecedented clarity, emotional patterns of those around him registering as tangible impressions within darkness rather than merely observed behavior. The accelerated integration was already manifesting, pushing him further toward cosmic awareness even as he fought to maintain human perspective. We should prepare for immediate departure to the valley once these patients are stabilized, he advised, forcing his focus back to practical matters. If Korashia's biological vectors have already reached Konoha, her full manifestation may be closer than we anticipated. Tsunade nodded grimly. I'll arrange the delegation while you complete treatments. Jiraiya, contact our Sand allies regarding Gaara's participation. His presence was specifically requested, which suggests his tailed beast connection may be more significant than previously understood. As they dispersed to their respective tasks, Temari remained beside Naruto, her steady presence somehow anchoring despite the cosmic changes accelerating within him. She observed him carefully as he prepared for the next patient's treatment. You're changing faster now, she noted quietly. I can see it in how you move, how shadows respond to you even without conscious direction. Yes, Naruto acknowledged, watching darkness gather around his hands without deliberate summons. The cellular level manipulation requires deeper integration than previous techniques. Each treatment pushes further toward what Ashborn calls convergence point, where human and cosmic essence become functionally inseparable. Yet you choose to continue, Temari observed, neither judging nor questioning, merely noting the significance of the decision. Because there's no acceptable alternative, Naruto replied simply. These people will die without intervention. Mathematical calculation of personal cost versus lives saved isn't particularly complex. Something in his phrasing, the clinical reference to mathematical calculation regarding human lives, revealed the subtle shift already occurring in his thought patterns. The Naruto who had challenged Xerxes would have spoken of protecting precious people, of refusing to abandon those who needed help. This more detached articulation reflected cosmic perspective gradually influencing human values. Temari noticed the shift immediately. Remember what connects you to them beyond calculation, she reminded him gently. What makes their lives valuable beyond strategic consideration? The reminder penetrated surprisingly deeply, triggering emotional response that cosmic detachment hadn't fully muted. Connections formed through shared experience, through mutual struggle and growth, through fundamental recognition of another's inherent worth. These remained accessible despite his transformation, though increasingly requiring conscious effort to prioritize. Thank you, he said simply, genuine gratitude warming his voice beyond its recent detached tone. For seeing what I risked forgetting. As he turned to treat the next patient, Naruto committed himself to maintaining this conscious balance, utilizing cosmic power while preserving human purpose, integrating Ashborn's essence without surrendering the core values that define Naruto Uzumaki. The coming journey to the Valley of Whispers would test this balance further, placing him in direct negotiation with entities that viewed human concerns as microscopic within cosmic patterns. Maintaining human perspective within such discourse would require constant vigilance against the natural gravity of cosmic integration. Yet the alternative, allowing the Plague Monarch's influence to spread unchecked while cosmic entities debated philosophical positions, remained unacceptable. Sometimes protection required transformation, even when that transformation carried profound personal cost. As shadow energy flowed through his hands into the next patient's crystallized chakra system, Naruto accepted this necessity while silently promising himself that no matter how complete the integration with Ashborn eventually became, he would never surrender the fundamental compassion that had always defined him, even if maintaining it required increasingly deliberate choice rather than natural inclination. The shadow networks pulsed in response to this internal commitment, darkness flowing with unusual warmth as it disrupted crystalline structures within human flesh. Perhaps even cosmic shadows could be shaped by human purpose when wielded with sufficient conviction. Chapter 18. The Valley of Whispers. 3 days after the encounter with Arcus's vessel, a small delegation from Konoha approached the legendary Valley of Whispers. Naruto led the way, his appearance now significantly altered from continued use of shadow healing techniques. The shadow energy no longer merely flowed beneath his skin, it had become an integral part of his physical form, causing his eyes to permanently shift to a deep obsidian with faint silver patterns that resembled distant stars. Behind him walked Tsunade, Jiraiya, his crystallized arm now contained within specialized sealing techniques, Kakashi, and 4 ANBU specialists selected for their unique sensory abilities. Gaara and Temari represented Sunagakure, having arrived in Konoha the previous day after receiving the urgent diplomatic request. The valley lies just beyond this ridge, Kakashi noted, Sharingan exposed to detect any potential traps or illusions. According to historical records, it was considered sacred ground even before the founding of the hidden villages. I can feel why, Gaara stated quietly, his sands swirling restlessly around him. The boundary between realms thins here. Shikaka is unusually agitated. Naruto nodded, his enhanced senses detecting the same phenomenon. The cosmic barriers naturally weaken in this location. It's why the rulers chose it for the meeting. Manifestation requires less energy here. As they crested the ridge, the valley came into view, a narrow ravine with sheer rock walls that seemed to absorb sound rather than echo it. Ancient stone monuments lined the path leading down, each carved with symbols that predated known written language. At the valley's center stood a circular stone platform surrounded by 7 pillars, each emanating a subtle glow that became visible only when viewed from the corner of one's eye. We're expected, Naruto observed, sensing presences that existed partially beyond conventional reality. 3 vessels already wait at the central platform. Any sign of hostility or trap? Tsunade asked, her experienced eyes scanning the valley floor. No, Naruto replied after consulting both his shadow senses and Ashborn's knowledge. They maintain defensive postures but show no preparation for immediate aggression. The delegation descended carefully into the valley, each member alert for any sign of deception. As they approached the central platform, 3 figures became visible, each human in basic form but transformed by the ruler essences they hosted. The central figure stepped forward, a woman with long white hair and eyes that shifted between all colors of the spectrum. Her skin bore luminous patterns that flowed like liquid light beneath the surface. Successor of Ashborn, she greeted Naruto, her voice carrying the same painful harmonics as other ruler vessels but modulated to minimize discomfort to human ears. I am Shira, vessel of Luminera, keeper of wisdom. Flanking her stood 2 men, one elderly with a staff that seemed composed of solidified light, the other young with metallic components integrated into his transformed flesh. Mifune, vessel of Solarius, keeper of judgment. The elderly man introduced himself, his voice resonating with authority that seemed to vibrate the very air. Darui, vessel of Nexus, keeper of connections. The younger man stated, electricity visibly arcing between the metallic components of his transformed body. Naruto stepped forward, shadow energy swirling around him in patterns that mirrored the light emanating from the ruler vessels. I am Naruto Uzumaki, successor to Ashborn, the Shadow Monarch. I come with representatives of the shinobi nations to hear your proposal. Tsunade moved to stand beside him, asserting her position as Hokage. Before any discussion begins, we require acknowledgement that the deaths caused by Arcus's vessel were unacceptable. Any alliance must include protocols that respect human life, regardless of cosmic priorities. The 3 ruler vessels exchanged glances before Shira nodded. Arcus's methods were unnecessarily destructive. In our haste to establish contact before the monarchs advanced further, proper consideration for vessel limitations was neglected. This will not be repeated. That's not quite an apology, Jiraiya observed dryly. Cosmic entities do not experience remorse as humans understand it, Naruto explained quietly. This acknowledgement of error and commitment to different future action is the closest equivalent. Shira gestured toward the central platform. Please join us. Time grows short, and what we must discuss concerns the survival of all realms, not merely diplomatic niceties. As the delegation stepped onto the platform, the stone beneath their feet illuminated with ancient symbols that responded to the presence of both human chakra and cosmic energies. The air seemed to thicken, creating a barrier that would prevent their conversation from being overheard by any listening ears, human or otherwise. 3 monarchs now prepare for manifestation in your realm, Shira began without preamble. Koracia, the plague monarch, whose biological vectors you have already encountered. Rakan, the beast monarch, who corrupts natural creatures into hunters that serve his will. And Silid, the void monarch, who consumes reality itself, leaving emptiness in his wake. You mentioned 4 monarchs previously, Kakashi noted, his analytical mind immediately catching the discrepancy. Antares, the dragon monarch, remains dormant for now," Mifune explained, his staff pulsing with light as he spoke. "But should the other three establish footholds in your realm, his awakening becomes inevitable. He is the most powerful of the four, a being of such destructive capacity that entire realms have been reduced to cosmic ash in his previous manifestations. And these monarchs threaten rulers as well?" Tsunade asked, focusing on the practical alliance implications. "The monarchs exist to consume," Gary stated, electricity crackling between his words. "They do not distinguish between human, ruler, or any other form of existence. All is merely sustenance for their endless hunger. In previous cosmic cycles, they have devoured entire realms, including those the fragments of brilliant light once called home, which explains your sudden interest in cooperation," Jiraiya observed skeptically. "Self-preservation rather than altruism. Cosmic entities do not experience altruism," Shira acknowledged without hesitation. "But mutual survival creates aligned interests regardless of motivation." Naruto had remained silent, absorbing the information while consulting with Ashborn's memories. Now he spoke, his voice carrying new authority that resonated with Shadow essence. "Ashborn fought the monarchs before his separation from the brilliant light. He remembers their patterns, their weaknesses, but he also remembers how the fragments turned against him after that conflict ended. The three ruler vessels shifted uncomfortably, light patterns fluctuating across their transformed bodies. The past division between Ashborn and the fragments arose from fundamental philosophical differences regarding realm interaction," Shira stated carefully. "Those differences remain. But current circumstances require temporary alignment despite philosophical disagreement. In other words," Gaara interpreted, speaking for the first time, "you'll work with us against the monarchs, but once that threat ends, the old conflicts resume, unless new understanding emerges through cooperation." Mifune qualified, surprising the other ruler vessels with this concession. "Cosmic perspective evolves slowly, but it does evolve." Naruto turned to Gaara. "Arcus specifically mentioned that Shikaka contains knowledge crucial to understanding the monarch's weaknesses. Can you access this information?" Gaara closed his eyes, communing with the tailed beast sealed within him. After a moment, his eyes opened, now showing the distinctive star-shaped pupils of Shikaka's influence. When he spoke, his voice carried dual tones, his own overlaid with the tailed beast's rougher cadence. "The tailed beasts remember," Gaara/Shikaka stated. "Before we were separated from the Ten Tails, when we existed as a single entity, we witnessed the last monarch incursion into this realm. The Sage of Six Paths and his brother fought alongside beings of light and shadow to repel them." This revelation sent ripples of surprise through both the human delegation and the ruler vessels. Chapter 19. Convergence of Forces. The atmosphere grew tense within the Valley of Whispers as the weight of Gaara's revelation settled over the gathered group. The history of the tailed beasts intertwined with the past defeats of the monarchs hinted at powers and knowledge long buried but now resurfacing. Shira spoke first, her voice calm yet imbued with urgency. "Then the remnants of that conflict may still linger within the tailed beasts. Understanding the last battle against the monarchs could grant us the edge we desperately need. As it stands now, we lack the intelligence needed to strategize effectively." Naruto chimed in, his shadow energy swirling subtly around him, mirroring the emotions rippling through the valley. "If the tailed beasts possess an understanding of the monarch's capabilities and weaknesses, we need to tap into that wisdom as soon as possible. We have less time than we anticipated." "Time is indeed a critical factor," Mifune acknowledged, his staff trembling slightly as another wave of energy pulsed through the platform. "The infection from Quraish's vectors is spreading. We've witnessed it manifest in Konoha already, and it may very well lead to similar outbreaks across the continent if left unchecked. Then we must act decisively," Tsunade asserted, her leadership instincts kicking in as she eyed the ruler vessels. "Our combined efforts must have a twofold approach, countering the immediate threat posed by the Plague Monarch while developing a plan to deal with the other monarchs." Darui glanced toward Gaara, his metallic enhancements sparking with latent energy. "If the tailed beast can provide historical insights, can it also aid in direct confrontations? We'll need every advantage if the monarchs descend upon us full force." Gaara nodded, clearing his throat as Shikaka's influence receded ever so slightly. "Shikaka can manifest layers of heritage chakra we need to devise offensive and defensive strategies. It can draw upon the essence of what we now understand as the Ancient Union, those who fought against the monarchs before. We can amplify that ancestral power," Naruto mused, practically vibrating with anticipation. "If we can create a conduit to channel this legacy, we can harness the strength of past conflicts and reshape it for our current war. Your connection to Ashborn gives you a unique avenue to merge these energies," Shira noted. However, the cost of such convergence may be profound. The energies of the tailed beasts and the essence of the rulers are not to be taken lightly, especially when meshed with your burgeoning strengths. The thought of forging alliances with cosmic entities was daunting, but nothing felt as heavy as the potential loss looming over their heads. Naruto took a deep breath, grounding himself. Before we go deeper into this, let's establish terms. If we're to battle alongside you, we want assurances concerning the preservation of human lives. No one dies unnecessarily in pursuit of cosmic agendas. Mifyun's expression hardened slightly, reflecting the weight of his own convictions. Then the question arises, what measures must we undertake to ensure compliance from both sides during this alliance? The first step is clear. Tsunade responded, her strategic mind racing ahead. We'll implement a code of conduct regarding the use of force. This code must be respected, and anyone violating it will be held accountable, rulers and humans alike. That's a reasonable start. Darui acknowledged, electricity still dancing along his fingers. But while we'll agree to promote life, the urgency of our task will often necessitate immediate actions against monarch forces. Will all parties be prepared to consider losing fewer lives for the greater picture? Perhaps temporary sacrifices are necessary. Shira interjected, her voice ringing through the air. But it's critical we define those sacrifices, in a way that does not blur lines. Awareness hung within the valley, a sense of collective urgency clashing against the impulse to protect what was. As Naruto weighed the words bouncing between them, he turned to his friends, each of them embodying a pillar of support within the chaos of their current lives. I propose a summit meeting at the heart of the valley, he suggested, a new resolve blooming within him. With representatives from all sides, including those who fight for Konoha and those that lead the elder rulers. This summit can serve as a foundation for this alliance and set concrete agreements for how we fight the monarchs. The elderly vessel nodded. A wise proposal. Establishing a nexus of conversation where information flows freely may offer insights previously hidden. And if we can agree on strategies that utilize our combined strengths, we may shift the tide. Then let's move swiftly. Tsunade ordered, her resolve strong as the team began to carve their agenda into place. We will meet with the tailed beasts and the rulers. We need access to history, how previous battles played out. Naruto, lead discussions concerning the integration of powers. Gaara, summon Shikaku. With determination mapping their course, they prepared the summoning ceremony. The air in the Valley of Whispers thickened as they began to unite their energies, forging a connection with deeper truths of their heritage. As the gathering commenced, ancient symbols among the stone shrines illuminated, responding to the convergence of intentions in the valley. In that moment, shadows danced against threads of luminous light as Naruto embraced the growing energy within him, the reality that the fate of their realm rested on their shoulders, teetering between light and dark. As conversations sparked around the platform, Naruto immersed himself in the hidden well of extraordinary power lying just beneath the surface, aware that to secure peace, they must first embrace the turmoil inherent to their very essences. As Naruto felt the shadow energy pulse fiercely within him, he knew that the Valley of Whispers was not just a meeting ground. It would become a crucible where alliances were tested, forged, and shaped against the encroaching nightmare that was the monarchs. Chapter 20. The Rise of Shadows. Days merged into nights as plans solidified, the air humming with anticipation and urgency while every participant prepared for the confrontation with the monarchs. As the elder representatives convened, they painstakingly laid out strategies, countermeasures, and contingency solutions. Each ruler vessel had duly acknowledged the danger they faced, the uncertain landscape between the ancient alliances, and contemporary relationships fraught with distrust. Back in Konoha, the aftermath of potential infections still loomed heavy over villagers. The medical teams gathered vital data to refine responses that would also assist the entire Shinobi Alliance. The vast network of intel was now buzzing between Konoha, Sunagakure, and ruler factions. Each day we draw closer to the monarch's full manifestations, Naruto said to his team as they gathered in a briefing room within the village. But rather than feel fear, we need to channel that into preparation. He could feel the tension radiating from his friends and allies, each carrying their own burdens. It's hitting me harder than I expected, Gaara confessed, eyes staring at the papers splayed before him but not truly seeing them. These monarchs won't just threaten Konoha. They could impact the entire shinobi world, which is why we need every available force. Tsunade's voice was firm. And we will not stand to lose anyone further in this fight. Agreed, Jiraiya muttered, his crystallized arms still reminiscent of past injuries. If the plague monarch infects larger swathes of the population, we may face devastating losses before the first dragon flies. Just then, A messenger bird flapped into the room, delivering an urgent note to Naruto. The feathered creature hopped around impatiently, eager for his attention. "Now what?" Naruto said, furrowing his brow as he read the missive. His eyes widened significantly as he recognized the ink. "It's from the Elder Ruler's faction. They've confirmed Quraish's advance, and they're mobilizing sections of their population as well." "Mobilizing how? Be specific," Tsunade ordered as she leaned closer to see what else was written. "The rulers believe there are still vessels of light they can awaken to counter the monarchs. Their essence may be needed to stave off imminent attacks, especially if they can awaken old allies. They've made it clear, we need to unite everything quickly." "How quickly?" Gaara pushed ahead, concern etching deeper into his features. "They mentioned an immediate congregation of those willing to offer themselves as vessels. We must act fast to direct these energies against the threat." Naruto glanced around the room and saw renewed determination in their faces. "We're going to have to act with precision, force, and adaptability. Exactly the strengths we'll need," Swanda replied, nodding. "I'll contact the medical units to ensure we can treat the new vessels if necessary." "And the army of shadows?" Jiraiya questioned, the air filled with uncertainty. The idea of gathering anything bizarre and supernatural rattled his underlying beliefs but remained an inescapable truth. "Will come," Naruto assured him. "But they will not act mindlessly. Just as we plan and adapt, so will they. Each shadow will be summoned, rising beneath our very feet." At that moment, a shadowy figure fluttered into the room, materializing near him. A candidate from Ashborn's army awaited orders, ready to report the latest news from the perimeter. "Successor, there are reports of the first factions of monarch creatures nearby. They've formed skirmishes aimed at gathering energy from weakened victims." With the urgency palpable in the air, Naruto gathered his thoughts, aware of the stakes at hand. "We have no time to waste. We'll split into teams and deploy both shadow forces and shinobi. Strength will be required at every front, focusing on protecting and safeguarding civilians while engaging the enemy. The shadow forces will work as a cleanup team to ensure casualties arise only when there's no hope left." Rejoining with Temari and ensuring their battle formations were prepared, Naruto felt the waves of expected conflict rattle underneath Konoha's walls. With each passing moment, a pivotal decision pushed him further toward embracing his position, and with it came strength. "Prepare yourselves," he said to his assembled shinobi, shadow energy rising like tendrils around his body. "The monarchs will come, and when they do, we will stand not as merely shinobi, but united with the vessels of our past, our shadows, and whatever light we can conjure." Outside Konoha's walls, darkness stirred as ancient powers awakened, readying themselves for the ultimate clash. Naruto felt the earth tremble beneath him, echoing a long-lost battle cry merging with the present, ensuring no one would fight alone. As the shadows gathered, an army of darkness rose, ready to meet the storm. Merging fears and fervent hopes blended into a single harmony, the convergence of light, shadows, and humanity's sheer will to resist the encroaching darkness would soon culminate in a confrontation that would define the fate of the world. Steeling himself for what lay ahead, Naruto stepped forward. The time for whispers had passed, now they would roar. Chapter 21: The Awakening of Allies. With the air thick with uncertainty and the impending rise of the monarchs looming like a storm on the horizon, Naruto reached toward the essence within him, Kurama's presence, deeper and more resonant than ever. "Kurama," Naruto began, summoning the spirit of the Nine Tails to the forefront of his consciousness. "We're preparing for the monarch's approach. Your strength is crucial to our plans." Inside, Kurama stirred, a flicker of interest igniting within the normally dormant chakra of the beast. "I could sense those monarch's energies from here. They're not merely powerful, they're dangerous, far more than anything we've faced before. You're not planning to face them alone, are you?" "No," Naruto replied firmly, conviction threading through his words. "We're forming an alliance with the rulers to counter their influence. But I'll need your chakra to strengthen the bonds we forge, especially with the power we'll summon from the tailed beasts. Your energy can harmonize with theirs." Kurama's growl echoed within Naruto's psyche, a mixture of skepticism and begrudging respect. "As long as we are not dancing to the whims of cosmic entities, I will cooperate. But be wary, the moment remnants of our chakra can't keep you grounded. Recall every time your ego grew because of greater abilities, a lesson I've taken to heart," Naruto assured, feeling the surge of power ripple through his being as he channeled Kurama's chakra alongside the shadow energy that flowed through him. "We stand as one against the coming threat, whether it be monarchs or rulers." "Very well." Kurama relented, his voice deep and rumbling. "Just remember, we choose our battles. but we will fight those threats that seek to consume us. With Kurama's support rang through him, Naruto turned back to the group assembled before him. We are stepping onto a battlefield where the balance of power can shift in a heartbeat. Each of you possesses unique strengths that will forge the path ahead. But we must also rely on unity, beliefs that transcend individual ambitions. The rulers and we may not see eye to eye, but in this war, there are no lines we cannot cross to safeguard our world. As the shinobi began dispersing to their assigned teams, Naruto took a moment to observe his comrades. Jiraiya stood nearby, his crystallized arms shifting beneath the cloak he wore, each movement reverberating with the memories of battles past. Temari, her spirit unyielding, shared vigilant glances among the other members while Gaara seemed contemplative, focusing on the ground ahead as if communing with Shikaku. Don't let the thought of cosmic politics cloud your judgment when the moment calls for action, Temari stated, placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder as she caught his gaze. The rulers need us as we need them. Let's ensure the lines stay drawn, but not so deeply that we ignore the coalitions necessary to survive. Right, Naruto affirmed, his resolve strengthening. Let's do this together. The teams began to assemble and disperse into the life of Konoha, each readying themselves for their roles in the impending clash. As shinobi deployed quickly while others fell into familiar formations, Naruto stepped back, allowing Kurama's energy to wash over him, creating a barrier against the pressure of uncertainty. As the final preparations were made and Konoha fortified against the encroaching storm, Naruto moved toward the outskirts where newly awakened shadows awaited him, ready to deploy against the manifestations of the monarchs, manifestations that had begun to stir among the rising darkness. Chapter 22: The War on the Doorstep. The atmosphere was electric as Naruto advanced to the front line established just on the outskirts of the village. Dimensional rifts opened sporadically in the air, creating shimmering barriers that distorted the landscape. Whispers of ancient conflict lingered within the shadows, haunting reminders of impending battles. Prepare yourselves! Naruto called out, commanding the attention of both the shadow entities and human shinobi equally. While the monarchs and their influences threaten us today, we have the resolve and strength that comes from our shared history, a legacy that burns brighter than the shadows. As he finished speaking, an ominous rumble echoed in the distance. The ground vibrated like a living entity, shaking them with the weight of encroaching power. All at once, the shimmering rifts erupted forth, and the figure of the Plague Monarch, Koreisha, Monarch of Fangs, Rakan and Monarch of Frost, Silid emerged. I am Koreisha, and your interference ends today. Rakan, growled the bestial figure to her right, more animal than human. Silid, whispered the third. Naruto closed his eyes briefly, but instead of despair, a small smile formed on his lips. No, it doesn't. He extended his hand, and suddenly surrounded by an army of shadow soldiers, their ranks stretching beyond sight. The fight has begun, Tsunade growled, her fists hardening around her resolve. Brace yourselves! Kurama's voice rumbled through Naruto again. Let loose with my chakra. Without hesitation, Naruto activated the full weight of Kurama's chakra, feeling the tail manifestation swirl around him as the Nine Tails' power fused with the shadow energies. Let's push back! He yelled, unleashing waves of shadow energy that clashed against Koreisha's waves of corruption. As the confrontation began, the landscape morphed violently under the weight of their energies. Shinobi raced forward, led by Tsunade and Jiraiya, defending against the swarms of corrupted creatures rising from shadows while illuminating the battlefield with brilliant bursts of chakra. Shadow soldiers surged forward like living storms, spinning and wrapping themselves around the vile tendrils of Koreisha's ghastly creations. They ripped through the grotesque forms, draining their shadows until lifeless voids remained. But the monarch did not relent. Koreisha's gaze was chilling, deadly focus pouring into Naruto. You cannot hope to stop the inevitable, child of the shadow, she hissed, her voice radiating decay and dread. Embrace the coming plague. The shadows cannot hide you from the truth of your destiny. Destiny? Naruto spat back, his determination solidifying into tangible energy. My destiny is mine to shape. I won't let anyone fall into despair, not now, not ever. In response, he unleashed a wave of shadow energy, summoning multiple extensions of himself, shadow clones merging with the light from Kurama until the entire battlefield was alive with swirling energies. Fighting with purpose, the shadow clones flanked the grotesqueries, eliminating those corrupted forms before they could advance toward any innocent lives. Keep pushing through! Hold the line! Tsunade called, her voice cut through the fray. As resounding waves of energy enveloped her, she manifested a colossal slug of pure healing chakra, sending it crashing into the heart of Quraisha's entities and reversing the curse they nested within. All the while, Gaara and Temari stood side by side, coordinating attacks to ensure that their respective skill sets complemented each other's perfectly. With each strike, the energies of the tailed beasts coursed through them, a unity forged through their combined goal. What now? Gaara questioned as the battle continued escalating around them, his eyes locked onto the prolonged chaos. The forces are endless, then we must change that. Focus on the monarch! Temari shouted, flickering between single and sweeping motions as she manipulated the wind to scatter the creatures aside. With determination surging through him, Naruto called forth the power of Kurama again. Bijudama, chakra bomb! He bellowed as raw chakra coalesced into astonishing energy, glowing fiercely in blinding luminosity. He aimed carefully, aware of the chaotic battleground swirling around him, ensuring no one would be harmed as it launched. The massive orb of chakra streaked toward Quraisha, a light amid the darkness they fought against. As it detonated upon impact with the monarch, the explosion illuminated the twilight sky, scattering those vile spirits and forcing Quraisha to stagger. Impossible! Rakan snarled. No Shadow Monarch has ever manifested such power without complete ascension. That's where you're wrong, Naruto replied. I'm not just Ashborn's successor. I am also the Nine Tails Jinchuriki. I've become something new, humanity and cosmic power in perfect balance. Shadow blades, Naruto whispered. Blades made of shadow appeared in his hands, and in a blur of movement too fast for human eyes to track, Naruto struck. His shadow blades sliced through Quraisha's defenses, shattering her plague vectors. The monarch screamed as shadows invaded her light-based form. Rakan charged, bestial power shaking the earth, but found himself impaled on spears of darkness that erupted from beneath him. Impossible! Sillid whispered, attempting to retreat into smoke form. You cannot! I can't! Naruto interrupted, shadows enveloping the elf-like entity and rooting it in its place. Your understanding of the Shadow Monarch was incomplete. You expected Ashborn, but failed to account for human determination. Naruto standing in the middle of the battlefield with Shadow and Kurama's chakra flowing out of his body. The three monarchs lay defeated, not destroyed, but bound in shadow chains that nullified their powers. Tsunade appears beside him. This isn't the final battle, Naruto said, turning to his astonished companions. They were merely advance forces. Antares, the Dragon Monarch, will approach with his full might. We should return to Konoha, Tsunade suggested. Prepare our defenses. No, Naruto replied. Konoha isn't where this ends. We meet Antares on his terms, but with our strength. Chapter 23, Dragon of the Void. The dimensional rift split open like a wound in the fabric of existence, unveiling Antares, the true Dragon Monarch. His presence was overwhelming, an ancient king of dragons and destruction itself. His scales shimmered like dying stars, his eyes twin voids of endless hunger. Behind him, his legion followed, dragons of every kind, from stormbreathers to abyss-born terrors. They blotted out the sky above the barren plains where Naruto had chosen to make his stand. Shadow Monarch, Antares' voice resonated through reality itself. You have overstepped. You may have claimed 3, but I am first among equals. Naruto stood alone, his human allies protected behind layers of barrier seals. Darkness radiated from him, shadow essence coiling at his feet like a living thing, but his blue eyes burned with unwavering humanity. I am Naruto Uzumaki, the Shadow Monarch, he answered, his voice steady. And this world is under my protection. Antares laughed, a sound like grinding tectonic plates, shaking the battlefield. Protection? You stand alone against the King of Dragons, Naruto smirked. I'm never alone. He raised his hand, and the shadows surged, forming an army to match the dragon horde above. These weren't mere soldiers, they were legends, warriors of ages past, their forms familiar to those watching. Among them stood the Fourth Hokage, past Kage, and fallen heroes of countless wars, their spirits preserved in eternal shadow. The Shadow Monarch doesn't just command darkness, Naruto said. He carries the will of those who fought before him. Every warrior who died with purpose, every sacrifice, they stand with me. A deep growl rumbled from Antares' throat, and without warning, he unleashed his dragons in a storm of destruction. The battlefield erupted into chaos, shadow warriors clashing against primordial beasts, void fire meeting abyssal darkness. Naruto launched himself into the sky, his own wings of shadow unfurling as he met Antares head-on. You cannot defeat me, child, the Dragon Monarch snarled, unleashing a wave of annihilating breath. I am eternal. Nothing is eternal, Naruto countered, weaving through the storm of destruction. That's what humans understand better than you. Everything ends, and that's why it matters. Their battle tore at the fabric of existence, each clash reshaping reality itself. Antares' void fire unmade everything it touched, while Naruto's shadows devoured even nothingness. Mountains crumbled, the sky cracked, and dimensions flickered where their powers met. From below, the shinobi could only stare in awe. "It's beautiful," Temari murmured as the sky bled with shadow and flame. The battle raged, either gaining the upper hand, until Naruto saw what Ashborn's memories had been trying to show him all along, Antares' flaw. "You call yourself a monarch," Naruto said during a brief lull. "But you're bound by instinct, by rage. You're a conqueror, not a ruler." Antares' eyes flared with fury. Naruto shot forward, shadows spiraling around him. "Shadow technique, eternal binding seal!" Darkness lanced into Antares, coiling around his very essence. The dragon monarch thrashed, his form flickering between dimensions as the shadows constricted. "Impossible!" Antares roared, his vast power unraveling against the endless grasp of the Shadow Monarch. "I am power itself." "No," Naruto said, his voice calm. "Power without purpose is nothing." With a final, deafening roar, Antares was consumed, his presence sealed away into Naruto's shadow realm, not destroyed, but bound, his reign over. The remaining dragons, seeing their king fall, retreated through the dimensional rifts, the battle ending as swiftly as it had begun. Naruto descended, his army dissolving back into shadow. As his feet met solid ground, he let out a slow breath. "It's over," he said. Epilogue, Between Worlds. Years later, Konoha had changed in ways both subtle and profound. The 7th Hokage's office looked much like it always had, except for the shadows that seemed just slightly deeper than they should be. Naruto sat behind the desk, still recognizably himself despite the years and changes. The shadows no longer swirled visibly beneath his skin. He had learned to contain his power, but his eyes held depths that spoke of experiences beyond human comprehension. "The boundary between realms is stable," he reported to the council before him. "The rulers have retreated to their own dimensions following our agreements, and the remaining monarchs respect our territorial claims." "And the captured monarchs?" Shikamaru asked. "Contained within the Shadow Realm," Naruto replied. "Their power serves our protection now." Tsunade, retired but still commanding respect, leaned forward. "And what of you, Naruto? After all these years, are you still human?" Naruto smiled, and in that smile was the answer, the same determination and compassion that had defined him since childhood, now backed by cosmic understanding. "I'm both more and less than human," he answered honestly. "The Shadow Monarch and Naruto Uzumaki exist in perfect balance, either dominating the other." He stood, walking to the window to look out over Konoha. "I walk between worlds now. Part of me exists in the Shadow Realm, maintaining cosmic balance. Part remains here, protecting what I've always loved." As if summoned by his words, the door opened and Temari entered with their children, bright-eyed youngsters with unusual shadow affinity but thoroughly human hearts. "The true legacy isn't power," Naruto continued, watching his family. "It's teaching the next generation to maintain balance, between light and shadow, between cosmic forces and human compassion." Outside the window, the sun began to set over Konoha, casting long shadows that seemed to bow slightly toward their master. Within those shadows, barely perceptible, moved the forms of an eternal army, always vigilant, always protecting. "Some battles end," Naruto said quietly. "But the responsibility of power never does." In the distance, beyond human perception but clear to his enhanced senses, the cosmic boundaries rippled slightly, a reminder that eternal vigilance was the price of peace. Naruto smiled, accepting his role as guardian of both worlds. The shadows deepened as night fell, embracing Konoha in their protection, not as darkness to be feared, but as the natural balance to light. Just as their master had found his own perfect balance.